G'day everyone, welcome back to another weekly tipping video on the channel. So today going to be going over my week 2 finals tips for this final series. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you do go on to enjoy today's video, and let's get straight into it. As always, we'll have a quick look on how it went from the previous round, that being the first round of the final series, and I got myself a 0 out of 4. Yeah, one of my worst weeks of tipping in quite some time. It's been a long time since I've not gotten a single tip right in a round of football. They were pretty hard games to tip, to be fair, real coin flip games, and in the end, there were some pretty convincing wins throughout most of the case, with the Pies winning over the Crows, the Cats over the Lions, Hawthorn over GWS, and yeah, Fremantle, one of the games of the year, to be honest, against the Suns. But I thought Adelaide at home with those key forwards and the forward line they did have, the absence of Rankin definitely did show though, but I thought they might be able to wreak a bit of havoc with the absence of Jeremy Howe for the Pies. But what a defensive masterclass from Collingwood, and it really offered in spades their finals experience. They were more composed, they didn't rush with their ball use in comparison to Adelaide. Pressure, fantastic as well. So a real gritty win on the road it was for the Pies. The Cats against Brisbane. Brisbane being fantastic interstate, but you've always got to remember the Cats, one of the more efficient teams in the competition, and geez, they're a real fast ball moving side, and Brisbane just could not go with them. They kept on getting caught out goal side, those Brisbane midfielders and defenders, the small forwards, and Ollie Dempsey for the Cats had a day out, and yeah, a fantastic performance. Really ticked all the boxes, the Cats. Hawthorn over GWS. I was feeling the Giants wouldn't muck about here. They usually turn up in these sort of scenarios, but it just didn't look like them whatsoever. They're actually one of the more efficient teams going inside 50, but they panicked, they rushed, didn't look like themselves at all, and it was at the expense of Hawthorn's great pressure, but also similar to the Pies game, defensively outstanding. Hardwick and massive final term. A bit of a crazy comeback from the Giants. That's what they've been good at, but that's just where they are at. I think this season GWS has been a bit of a bits and places team. Absence of Jack Buckley certainly did hurt them, because defensively we're leaking goals left, right and centre, but the Hawks, a real hardy win, and certainly going to be heading into the Crows game with a bit of confidence, and looking for a bit of revenge after losing a close final from last year at the Adelaide Oval against Port Adelaide, of course. And this game was an absolute beauty. Fremantle versus the Suns. Can't be mad tipping Fremantle here. Suns just outplayed them for longer, really, as we expected. Fremantle got back into the game. They've had terrific second half surges this season, and from the circumstances that unfold, probably should have won the game with the run they had late, but thought Gold Coast really turned up from minute one, and their physicality was better, in my opinion, than Fremantle, and yeah, we're able to make the right decisions late, with Mac Andrews swinging forward, taking the mark, kicking the goal, and Rowell and Anderson got busy. I think it was Rowell that won that important clearance, and Swallow win the free, kicking the goal. It was a great moment to watch, but heartbreaking, of course, for Fremantle. But 0 out of 4 for this week. Let's try and get at least one tip correct heading into these semi-finals, shall we? Let's have a quick look at my tipping competition leaderboard update. Just 3 people got themselves a full 4 out of 4 score. You would have been having a good week if you got 3, but the real tricky one was that Gold Coast tip. Not really many people gave them a chance, so PG King 06, Boy Off Footy, and ESPN Fan got themselves a 4 out of 4. The only 3 in my tipping competition. And as for who's leading my competition, still is Sky though, and he's got a total score of 189. So now let's begin with the semi-finals for the second week. First game up, we have Adelaide taking on Hawthorn at the Adelaide Oval. It's the first time in quite a while that the first place team on the ladder is playing 8th place, but considering how much of a logjam it's been this season, not really much to differentiate between the top ranked side and the 8th place team, because Hawthorn this back half of the year have really improved, and I feel like they've continued to play much better and more high chemistry footy as the season has spanned on, so I'd say they're probably playing better as the weeks are getting by. A real confidence boosting win against the Giants, defensively outstanding, and they're definitely going to be heading this one with spirits up against the Crows, where yeah, really lowered their colours against the Pies. There was talks, and we did talk about it on the tipping video last week, that maybe Collingwood's finals experience would be a bit too much for them, and that was the case. They just didn't look really well prepared for the game. A lot of rushed entries, hack kicks, didn't really challenge Collingwood's defence well at all. Their ground level game was a real disappointment too, with the absence of Rankin and Rochelle as well, and their forward 50 stoppages, constantly Collingwood just walk it out. Yeah, it's a game where they can definitely learn off, but maybe are they going to be a Brisbane 2019 where they've peaked this year, but just don't quite have the experience and maybe go out in straight sets and plenty to learn for next year. They just played a real finals hardened side, and definitely a chance here. They are the favourites to bounce back against Hawthorn. Midfield battle should be a really interesting one here. These are arguably both of either team's weaker areas. 𝐼𝐴𝐿𝐼 and especially Dawson thought he really lowered his colours, and 𝐼𝐴𝐿𝐼 was horrifically inefficient. And as for Hawthorn, well, that's the case with Hawks midfield with the absence of Will Day. If Jon Newcomb's going to have a blinder, they're usually going to be winning games of football. His first half was electric. But if you can shut down Newcomb, that could wreak some havoc for that Hawthorn midfield. And to be fair, the Giants kicked a lot of goals from stoppages. I think it was almost 10 goals too, especially in that third quarter where they just couldn't contain it. So it isn't necessarily who can win the midfield battle, but who can be a bit more cleaner coming out, because both sides can win clearance. But looking at especially Adelaide on last Thursday night, just a lot of hack kicks forward. There are also a handful of passages of play against the Pies where Adelaide could have used the hands and really challenged Collingwood's defence a bit more better that way, but just kicked it far too often. So they've got to compose themselves, and that's what Hawthorn did really well last week against GWS. They didn't really panic their entries whatsoever. They moved it with pace, but also just took that extra second or two to hit a target inside 50. So those Adelaide defenders got to watch out for the likes of Dylan Moore, and 𝐼𝐴𝐿𝐼 can move high up the ground and accumulate. And Nick Watson, yeah, he's a low possession getter, but he always has that 3 or 4 minute burst throughout a quarter where he can kick a goal or two and really break the game open. And as for Adelaide's front half plays, there just were far too many passages last Thursday night. Michael Lanny and Zach Taylor were ones definitely to highlight with the absence of Rankin and 𝐼𝐴𝐿𝐼, but 𝐼𝐴𝐿𝐼 is confirmed to come back in, so a player of quality coming back on that side. Really need to improve those forward 50 stoppages, because that was a disappointment for the Crows last time out. And how Adelaide's front half go against Hawthorn's defence, it is the talking point in Hawthorn. We have been saying the last few weeks, Hawthorn's team defences look really solid, and it was arguably their best performance of the season against the Giants, considered over 70 inside 50s, but just looked so calm. And as the game got on late, they did so to stem the flow and win critical one-on-ones. Harburg had a massive final term. Brass, plenty of spoils. Battle was fairly solid too. And 𝐼𝐴𝐼, geez, he's been underrated this season, been rebounding for them superbly well. So whilst Adelaide had sufficient inside 50s and opportunities going forward against the Pies, if they just do what they did last week and not really challenge the opposing side's defence enough, well, it's just going to be a field day for this Hawthorn back six. Honestly, quite a tricky game of football to tip here. I think we all as a community get carried away with wanting to put the stock right on the elimination final winner, especially if they had a big win, and not really put the chips on the side that's lost the qualifying final in such a poor fashion like Adelaide. So I can understand a lot of people getting around the Hawks here, and with my head, honestly, Hawthorn, with this back half of the year they've had, yes, their interstate record wasn't great, and their record against the top 8 isn't too fancy either, but they've played good football, and in hindsight, they were definitely due, with how they were playing against those top 8 sides, to finally get a bit of a scalp against the Giants. And why can't they do it again? They'll definitely be thinking about the opportunity they missed in the semi-final last year at Adelaide. They played Adelaide Oval, to be fair, really well, and they had a really good start against the Crows last time out, kicking the first 5 odd goals of the game, but then did let it slip. So honestly, with my head, I think the Hawks can really win this game. They're a side in form. They're looking confident with how they're playing. A real well-connected team. But I just have that feeling that Adelaide, surely they find a way to bounce back here. And they've been so good at home this season. I did say in my finals bracket predictions video, I can't really see Adelaide losing 2 games in a row. But with how they played last week, there's definitely where I could see it. I'm going to be leaning towards the Crows, though. Has to be a response after last week. Their pressure was good, but it could have definitely been a lot better. So I think one of the messages for them would be to ramp up the pressure, but also get a bit of learning off last week. We weren't composed enough for the football. The expectations are lowered a little bit. The pressure's lowered a little bit as well. So can they prepare a bit better for this match and not rush with ball in hand, show a bit more composure? So yeah, I'm going to go Adelaide in this one. Heads feels like it should be going with the Hawks here, but I just have that gut feeling the Crows are going to bounce back here and show a real hearty performance against Hawthorn's side. Adelaide being one of the best back sixes in the league, let's remember too. I think they'll get a response there and show a really good defensive performance this Friday night. Dawson 𝐼𝐴𝐿𝐼 to be one of the key players in this game. We're going to be tipping the Crows in this one in a thriller that will go back and forth, and we'll go Adelaide by 5 points. And the next semi-final, we have an absolute belter here, the 𝐓𝐞 clash. The first 𝐓𝐞 clash in finals history. The Lions taking on the Suns at the Gabba. What an absolute rip snorter this shall be. It's 2 sides that hate each other, and whenever both these teams play, it's just real tough brand of football from either side. You have games throughout the year where Brisbane are able to beat up on the Suns like early in the season, but then I think it was around 2 months ago now, the Suns absolutely belted the living crap out of the Lions, especially in that contested game, and they won by around 10 goals. So who's going to be winning this one? Is it going to be Brisbane, where they're starting to look a bit banged up now? A few players out. 𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻, it was announced last week, he's been apparently playing through a knee problem, and Neil is unfortunately out again with the calf issue. But as we've said plenty of times this season, Brisbane arguably play their best football when their backs are up against the wall and when they're needing to find a bounce back win. So yeah, this is a chance for them to do that here and move into a prelim final, or will it be Gold Coast with a terrific and hardy performance over in the West, picking up the win against Fremantle? Nobody gave them a chance. We all thought that maybe the midfield could get the better of Fremantle, but from a four-quarter point of view, Freo maybe surge home, and that's what we saw. But they dug deep, the Suns, made the right moves late with moving 𝐸𝐴𝐴 forward to kick the winner, and it was such a feel-good moment. I think we all cherish that, except if you are a Fremantle supporter, of course. That's an absolutely heartbreaking way to lose. But Gold Coast heading into this one now, certainly with a bit of confidence. They did beat up well in Brisbane 8 weeks ago, so no doubt they have the recipe on how to beat Brisbane. I think it's fairly simple for them from face value, that they've just got to smack them in the midfield and really get on top on the inside, because Brisbane like it on the inside. They like the contested game, but so do Gold Coast. So I feel like whoever can win that area will be one of the key factors to who wins the game of footy. Mark Rowell and Anderson were huge last week. It was a finals-like performance from Rowell too, with the intensity out there. He was just crashing into packs, being able to burst out of congestion and get some important clearances for them. And Anderson was doing everything, attacking and also defence, with some chase-down tackles and a handful of smothers as well. 𝐓𝐿𝐴 Miller, I thought, was really underrated last week as that link-up player between midfield and forward. And he didn't play last time against the Lions, I am fairly sure too, so that's an inclusion to come in off the back of that big win they had against the Lions. And with how the Suns did win against the Dockers, it looked like a really sustainable finals brand. It was a Damien Hardwick style of brand with how they did win that game. Just one critical contest in their forward 50. Humphrey was able to break the lines, kick a goal or two. Ben Long as well. They only took, I think, around 6 odd marks inside 50, so it wasn't Ben King or bust. It was what they did at ground level in the forward 50 to really muscle out those Fremantle defenders. They're able to move it quick and direct, which really caught out the Freo defenders as well in transition. Matt Round, a few of those midfielders got the end of some quick handball receives, and away they went. And the Suns are one of the fastest ball-moving sides in the competition, and we do know regarding Brisbane that they can struggle against speed sometimes. Look at the loss they had against the Giants in Sydney earlier in the season with that slingshot style of footy. And Brisbane themselves like to move it quick at times. That's what they tried to do against the Cats, but Geelong really well prepared with their win last Friday night. They cut up the corridor, they were able to get those important smothers in. Yeah, they just really stifled Brisbane's ball movement. So whilst players like 𝐓𝐿𝐴 had an absolute stack of it, he just felt really inefficient that night. So if the Suns are any chance to move to a prelim here, as I said before, got to really win it well the source and try and outdo Brisbane in that contested game. But this is also a game where I think just in general play, the Suns could really try and out-physical the Lions like they did to Fremantle last week. Brisbane really struggle with defensive running, especially from the midfielders. So is that an area where Gold Coast can beat them for work rate, have the ability for their players to move harder than the Lions from contest to contest, and get them out goal side with players like Ben Long and Bailey Humphrey. Even Connor Buderick bobbed up with a few goals last week too. But Brisbane are the deserved favourites. They were my tip for the flag pre-finals too, and as I did say, they play their best football. They seem to play their best football when they are in need of a bounce back. They can't play much worse than they did, I personally feel, last time against the Cats. A real lethargic performance, so they just need to be sharp and on the ball from minute one. Nearly's a big out, but they've played some good football in his absence. Gold Coast don't necessarily tag either, so it's a game where I could definitely see 𝐷 𝐸𝐿𝐴𝐴 bouncing back as well and getting a lot of score involvements. And they are one of the best midfields in the league, the Lions, and even without Neil, I definitely think that they can outdo Gold Coast in the middle. Forwards need to have a bounce back though. 𝐴𝐴, Lohman, Charlie Cameron, really quiet last time out. And with this game being at home for Brisbane, I can definitely see one of those general forwards, like even a Zach Baylor, Cam Rayner, to be fair as well, really break this game open. So the Suns, I feel like they're a really good chance here. They played some confident football last week. They were on from the first bounce last time out against the Dockers, and they're playing a bit of a finals brand, so I think they definitely could out-physical the Lions here and beat them up around the ball. But for me, Brisbane have been the kings in terms of bouncing back this season, and I don't want to jump off them given how my Premier's tip. In general, the Lions are one of the best ball-moving sides in the competition. Brisbane have a great ability on being able to control the footy as well. They're one of the best teams in the competition on being able to own territory, lock it in the forward half. So if they are able to get the game on their terms, I definitely feel like they have the caper on being able to pick apart the Suns on the outside a little bit. So yeah, this is going to be a fiery contest, but I'm going Brisbane here for a bounce back and moving into a home prelim. But this is going to be a close game, I reckon, up until maybe three-quarter time. But yeah, I think a bit of Brisbane's class up forward will be able to break this game open, and we'll tip Brisbane here in an absolute ripper. We'll go the Lions here by 13 points, and they'll move to a away prelim. So everyone, there are my tips for the second round of the AFL Final Series for 2025. Let me know your tips down below in the comments section. Even if you are tipping both Hawthorn and Gold Coast, give given they are low percentage tipped, I don't think it's necessarily an upset at all. These are real tough games to tip, so I'd love to hear your people's opinions down below in the comments. Going to be streaming both games on the channel, of course, so make sure to stay tuned if you do wish to come by and say hi. And that's it from me, everybody. Take care. Until next time, I'll talk to you later. See you later, fellas.